Sam Carter sat alone on the edge of the firing range, the warm desert wind tugging at her hair, carrying with it the scent of gunpowder and dust. At 18, she was the youngest sniper in her battalion, and everyone knew it. Whispers followed her wherever she went, some questioning her ability, others mocking her quiet demeanor. Most didn't take her seriously. Her age was a handicap in their eyes. Her small frame didn't match the image of a hardened soldier, but Sam had a secret strength: focus. And in the world of snipers, focus could make the difference between life and death. Her rifle rested across her lap, polished and calibrated, the scope gleaming in the afternoon sun. Every detail mattered. She adjusted her cheek weld, checking alignment, her eyes tracing the target downrange with the precision of someone who had trained for years despite her age. Around her, the senior snipers joked and laughed, pairing off to practice maneuvers. Sam observed silently, absorbing every movement, every adjustment they made. They underestimated her, but she didn't mind. Underestimation was a weapon, one she planned to wield carefully. The base was abuzz with whispers of a high-stakes mission. Intelligence reports hinted at a hostage trapped deep in a hostile desert zone, somewhere far from the safety of friendly lines. The details were scarce, intentionally vague, because only a handful of officers knew the full story. Sam had seen the satellite images. She studied them in secret during the hours the other soldiers laughed over coffee or scrolled through their phones. Every hill, every ridge, every valley was etched into her memory. She didn't just memorize maps. She visualized movements, trajectories, the likely paths of both enemies and friendly forces. Command had already dismissed her request to participate in reconnaissance for the operation. "Too young," her superior had said. "You'll get in the way." Sam had nodded, polite but unconvinced. Nodding, however, didn't mean giving up. She had made a mental note of every vulnerability in the enemy's layout, every weak point in the mission plan, and she silently promised herself she wouldn't be sidelined if things went wrong. Her mind wandered briefly to home, to her younger brother who often watched her training videos online. He believed in her even when no one else did. She could picture him cheering silently, whispering encouragement through the phone. "You've got this, Sam." That image steadied her heartbeat, keeping her grounded as adrenaline coursed through her veins. The mission, though unassigned, was already unfolding in her mind. Every option, every potential failure was a calculation. Sam had always been precise. She stood and lifted her rifle to her shoulder, scanning the targets once more. Dust swirled around her boots. The desert was vast, harsh, and unforgiving, a mirror of the challenges that lay ahead. A part of her thrived on that, on the clarity that danger brought. She was ready even if no one else recognized it. Today, she would not just wait. Today, she would prepare to act even if the odds were against her. Sam's gaze shifted toward the distant mountains beyond the base. She traced a path in her mind, mapping every ridge, every shadow, every potential hiding spot. The helicopter carrying the main team would soon lift off, unaware that one pair of eyes already saw through the enemy's blind spots. One shot, one chance. She whispered the mantra silently, feeling it resonate in her chest. She didn't yet know when that shot would come, but she knew she would be ready. As the wind kicked up sand into her boots, she crouched low and began inspecting her equipment again. Every bullet counted. Every movement mattered. Today, the youngest sniper in the battalion would prove she wasn't just capable, she was exceptional. And when the time came, no one would be able to deny it. The desert stretched before her, empty and waiting, but Sam's mind was already in motion, planning, predicting, preparing. Somewhere beyond the horizon, danger lurked, and she would meet it head-on. No one believed her. That would change soon. The briefing room was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Maps were projected onto the wall, the topography of the hostile desert zone stretching out like a labyrinth of jagged ridges and dry riverbeds. Sam sat near the back, legs crossed, eyes scanning every detail while the older snipers whispered tactical advice to one another. Her superiors outlined the mission. A U.S. engineer had been captured behind enemy lines. The team's task was to infiltrate, extract, and return safely. To most, it seemed straightforward, a routine hostage rescue, but Sam noticed subtle inconsistencies immediately. The enemy presence was underrepresented in the reports. Troop numbers were vague, patrol rotations ill-defined. Satellite imagery had gaps, like someone had intentionally obscured certain areas. Every instinct in her body screamed that this mission would be far more dangerous than the command brief suggested. She raised a hand, voice calm but firm. "Sir, the maps don't account for recent movement near the eastern ridge. They could have reinforcements hidden there." Her superior shook his head. "That's speculative, Carter. Focus on your role, stick to the plan." Sam's jaw tightened, but she nodded silently. Obedience was mandatory, even when intuition screamed otherwise. Still, she recorded every detail in her mind, memorizing every ridge, every shadow, every potential advantage. The team might ignore her warnings, but she would not be unprepared. Outside the briefing room, soldiers began preparing their equipment. Rifles were cleaned, scopes calibrated, comms tested. Sam moved to a quiet corner, inspecting her own sniper rifle with meticulous care. She checked the barrel, the stock, the trigger sensitivity, every adjustment perfectly aligned. Ammunition was counted 3 times. Every tool had to be flawless. Her life and the life of the hostage depended on it. She adjusted her scope lens, noticing a faint scratch she hadn't before. It didn't bother her. She'd trained to compensate for imperfections. As the main team prepared to depart, Sam reviewed the satellite images she had secretly studied in her downtime. Hidden depressions in the desert floor, shallow gullies, and narrow ridges created paths invisible to casual observation. These were the escape routes she would have used if given the opportunity. Her mind ran simulations, calculating movement, timing, and trajectory. The desert, vast and unforgiving, was a deadly chessboard, and she already knew several moves ahead of the opposing side. Her younger brother's voice came to mind again. He believed she could accomplish anything. That thought grounded her even as the tension in the air thickened. Around her, the older snipers laughed, confident and unconcerned, while she silently traced the lines on her map like a soldier possessed. The mission was no longer theoretical, it was inevitable, and she had to be ready. The helicopter rotors began to whirl outside, a distant rumble that echoed in the briefing room. The main team would depart soon, oblivious to the dangers Sam had already anticipated. Command reiterated their instructions, observation only, stay behind. Sam clenched her jaw. Observation would not save lives if the team stumbled into a trap. She slipped the maps into her pack, checking her rifle once more. As the helicopter lifted, the wind in the desert carrying its metallic roar, Sam lingered by the edge of the base, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The terrain looked peaceful from afar, a silent expanse of sand and rock, but she knew it would erupt into chaos the moment the first enemy patrol spotted the intruders. She whispered to herself almost inaudibly, "One shot, one chance. If they fail, I won't." She was officially sidelined, but Sam had already made her decision. She would follow the mission on her own terms, moving unseen, thinking faster, acting smarter. The desert was vast, but her resolve was greater. No one believed her yet, and that would be her advantage. Every step taken in secret, every calculation memorized, would be a seed for the storm she was about to unleash. The helicopter disappeared over the horizon. Silence returned to the base, heavy and expectant. Sam crouched low, tracing the ridges with her eyes one last time. Somewhere out there, danger was already waiting. And when it came, she would meet it alone, but fully prepared. The mission had begun, whether the command realized it or not. The desert sun was relentless, baking the ridges and gullies into shades of gold and rust. From her hidden perch on a narrow cliff, Sam scanned the horizon, spotting the helicopter carrying the main team as it disappeared into the distance. Her heart thumped, not with fear, but with calculated anticipation. Every movement, every breath was measured. The mission was already in motion, and she would act if the team stumbled. Minutes later, chaos erupted. The radio crackled briefly, then went silent. Alarms blared in the helicopter cockpit. Sam's instincts screamed. The rescue team had walked into an ambush. Enemy fire erupted near the extraction zone. Dust and smoke twisted in the air, masking gunfire, explosions, and shouts that carried faintly to her ears. The engineer's safety and her team's lives hung by a fragile thread. Sam's mind went into overdrive. She gripped her rifle, checking the scope, measuring distance, wind, and trajectory. Every scenario she had memorized in secret played out in rapid succession. The enemy had overextended their patrols, leaving small blind spots. If she moved now, she could reach a vantage point that would give her a clear line of sight to both the hostage and the enemy guards. The desert was dangerous, but she had trained for terrain like this. Slipping quietly along a narrow ridge, Sam adjusted her footing on loose gravel. Sand stung her face, seeping into her uniform, but she ignored it. Every instinct told her where to place each step to avoid detection. Her breathing was controlled, steady, and silent. The faint metallic smell of gunfire lingered in the air. Somewhere below, the enemy moved in clusters, confident and unaware. Confidence, she knew, was a vulnerability. She spotted a lone guard patrolling the perimeter of the small compound where the hostage was likely held. Sam's pulse steadied. One shot could eliminate him, creating a clear path for reconnaissance. One mistake, and the alarm would bring a flood of reinforcements. Her finger hovered lightly on the trigger, the weight of the mission pressing against her chest. Years of training compressed into a single moment. Sam exhaled slowly, calculated the wind, her heartbeat, the slight slope of the terrain. Time seemed to stretch. She focused on the guard's movement, waiting for the exact moment when the shot would be perfect. Her mind filtered every detail: distance, gravity, wind, rifle calibration. The desert itself seemed to hold its breath. She whispered, almost inaudibly, "One shot, one chance." Just as she was about to fire, a distant explosion shook the ridge, sending a plume of dust into the air. The enemy scattered, alert and disoriented. Sam's eyes never left the guard. The chaos, while dangerous, was also her opportunity. She adjusted slightly, steadying her breath, and fired. The shot rang out sharp and precise, hitting its mark. The guard fell silently, the sand absorbing his body. No alarm, yet. Sam pressed on, crawling across the ridge toward the next vantage point. The main team was trapped below under heavy fire. Every second counted. She could see the hostage now, cowering in the shadows of a small compound, guarded by two heavily armed men. The distance was short, but the risk was immense. She could not wait for backup. She had to act alone. Every movement required calculation. Every breath was synchronized with the rustle of sand and the distant gunfire. Her rifle became an extension of her body, her mind calculating trajectory and timing with terrifying precision. The desert stretched endlessly, but Sam felt she controlled every inch of it. Her eyes locked on the hostage, every plan in her head crystallized into one singular goal: reach him, protect him, survive. Sam's thoughts were singular, unshakable. This was no longer training. This was real. One misstep would cost lives, but failure was not an option. The sniper's ridge, the enemy, the hostage, the wind, everything converged into one moment. And in that moment, Sam Carter, 18 years old, prepared to act alone. The incident had begun, and there was no turning back. Sand whipped against Sam's face as she inched closer to the hostage compound, the rifle steady against her shoulder. Her heart pounded, but her movements were calculated, almost methodical, as if each step were part of a deadly dance she had rehearsed 1,000 times. She could hear the distant roar of explosions, the main team trapped in an ambush somewhere below, their shouts lost in the chaos. Every second mattered. Hesitation could mean death, not just for her, but for the hostage. From her vantage point, Sam observed the two guards patrolling near the doorway. The hostage crouched inside, trembling, unaware that salvation was silently approaching. Sam's pulse remained steady. She had trained for moments like this. She adjusted her scope, measured the wind, and calculated the trajectory. One shot, one chance. The desert, which had seemed serene moments before, now felt alive with danger, every shadow potentially lethal. She exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The first guard dropped, a silent collapse into the sand. The second spun toward the sound, weapon raised, but Sam had already anticipated his movement. She fired again. A sharp crack echoed, and he too fell. The path was clear, but the victory was fleeting. Alarms blared from inside the compound, mechanical shrieks that signaled the enemy had discovered the intrusion. Sam didn't hesitate. She sprinted low across the dunes, sand biting her skin, body tense with adrenaline. Every step was deliberate. Her legs burned, her lungs screamed for air, but she forced control over every motion. The hostage froze at first, eyes wide, but Sam motioned for him to move, whispering, "Stay low. Follow me exactly." The engineer nodded, fear evident but compliance instant. Gunfire erupted behind them, closer now. Sam fired strategically, suppressing enemy positions without endangering the hostage. Bullets whizzed past, striking the sand and rocks around them, kicking up clouds of dust. Each shot required precision, each breath counted. She guided the hostage through narrow gullies and behind rock outcroppings, using the terrain to shield them. The desert had become a battlefield of shadows, and she was the unseen force moving with lethal intent. At one point, an enemy soldier appeared at the crest of a ridge, weapon aimed directly at them. Sam fired a precise shot, and he tumbled backward, the sand absorbing him. The hostage's hands shook as he tried to hold the rifle, but Sam reminded him, firmly yet quietly, "No mistakes. Stay quiet. Move." Her voice carried authority despite her youth. Every second now was a test of courage, instinct, and endurance. An explosion in the distance rocked the earth. The main team was under fire, pinned down. Sam realized she had to buy time. Every enemy she delayed, every shot she made, gave the trapped soldiers a chance to survive. Her body screamed from exertion, and the scrape of sand on her arms and legs left abrasions, but she pressed on. Fear was irrelevant. Survival and duty propelled her forward. She finally reached a small ridge overlooking a narrow escape path she had memorized from her earlier satellite analysis. Below, the enemy had begun to regroup, unaware that their hostage was already minutes away from potential freedom. Sam crouched, breathing shallow, adrenaline coursing as she prepared to cover their movement. Every movement, every shot, every command to the hostage was precise, intentional. Mistakes were unacceptable. As they descended the ridge, the hostage whispered, "I didn't think anyone could come for me." Sam shook her head. "I'm here, just keep moving." The desert stretched endlessly before them, but Sam felt invincible. Training, instinct, and courage converged in her mind, sharpening every sense. This was chaos, but it was also her element. She was a ghost in the sand, a young sniper carrying a burden far beyond her years. And in the distance, the enemy was closing in. The desert sun beat down mercilessly, but Sam barely felt it. Her focus was singular, the hostage's survival. Every step forward demanded precision, every movement calculated to avoid detection. Her uniform was streaked with dust and sweat, her legs scraped raw from crawling across jagged rocks and shifting sand. Each heartbeat carried the weight of the mission, and the lives depending on her. Failure was not an option, yet danger lurked in every shadow. As she guided the hostage through a narrow gully, an enemy patrol emerged ahead, their weapons trained and ready. Sam's mind raced. Direct confrontation would be suicidal. The path back was blocked. The only option was a calculated diversion. She pulled a small explosive from her pack, one she had carried for emergencies, and set it near a rocky outcrop just ahead. Every second counted. She had to place it carefully to draw attention without revealing their precise location. With trembling hands but a steady mind, she armed the device, her breath measured, pulse controlled. The hostage crouched beside her, eyes wide and terrified. Sam whispered, "Stay low, trust me." A flash and muffled explosion erupted moments later, rocks scattering and dust rising into the air. Enemy soldiers immediately turned toward the disturbance, shouting and firing into the open desert. Sam seized the opportunity and urged the hostage forward, guiding him toward cover behind a narrow ridge. But the moment of triumph came with a price. A ricochet grazed her thigh, a sharp burn that stole her breath. Pain lanced through her leg, but she refused to slow. Every second mattered. She had to remain the predator in this deadly game, not the prey. The hostage followed her silently, trembling, clutching his arms to stay low. Sam gritted her teeth, forcing each step, her mind running calculations despite the pain. This was no longer just a mission, it was survival under fire. The enemy began closing in from multiple directions, their voices rising in panic and coordination. Sam knew she could not stop them all. Her role now was to delay, distract, and protect. Every shot she took had to count. She fired carefully, eliminating a few pursuers while forcing others to take cover. Bullets tore through the sand around them, kicking up clouds that cloaked their movements. She was a young sniper, yes, but she was deadly, precise, and unrelenting. Despite the injuries and the suffocating heat, Sam's mind was razor-sharp. She guided the hostage through hidden depressions and behind rock formations she had memorized from satellite imagery. The desert stretched endlessly, a vast maze of dunes and jagged stones, but she moved like a ghost, every instinct honed by hours of rigorous training. She whispered commands to the hostage, keeping him calm, repeating over and over, "Stay low, move quietly, trust me." His shaking hands mirrored the tension in her chest, but they pressed on. Hours, or maybe minutes, time had become meaningless, passed as they navigated the hostile terrain. Enemy reinforcements had, yet Sam's strategy of calculated movement and precision shots kept them at bay. Each step brought her closer to survival, each calculated decision an act of courage. Every sacrifice she had trained for, every risk she had imagined, was being realized now in the harsh desert sun. Finally, they approached a small ridge that marked a potential escape path. Sam paused, pressing the hostage against the ground, and scanned the horizon. Reinforcements were converging, and her strength was waning. She knew what had to be done, another diversion, another calculated risk. She could not fail, not now, not when they were within reach of safety. Her body screamed, her leg burned, her mind was exhausted, but her resolve was unbroken. One last decision, one last act of courage. Sam whispered to the hostage, "Follow my lead exactly." She would risk everything herself, the only chance at freedom, to give him a shot at life. Every step forward was a defiance against doubt, fear, and the relentless desert. The sacrifice had begun. The desert stretched endlessly, golden waves of sand punctuated by jagged rocks, but Sam moved with deadly purpose. Her leg throbbed from the ricochet wound, each step a reminder of the stakes. Behind her, the distant shouts of enemy soldiers grew louder, closer. The hostage shuffled beside her, pale and trembling, his trust absolute. Sam's mind raced through every detail she had memorized from satellite imagery. She knew the terrain, the blind spots, and the narrow corridors that could conceal them. Every movement now had to be precise, every step a calculation. From a high ridge, Sam observed the enemy reorganizing, their confidence slowly returning after the diversion she had set. Reinforcements moved to block the escape route she had planned. Her pulse quickened, but fear had no hold over her. This was her moment to turn the tide. With a careful glance, she realized an unexpected advantage. A series of shallow gullies and rock outcroppings nearby could channel enemy movement away from them. She had memorized this exact terrain during her secret reconnaissance. Sam whispered to the hostage, "Follow me exactly. One step at a time, don't look back." He nodded silently, trusting her instinct completely. Together they slipped into the gullies, moving like shadows, sand crunching softly beneath their boots. Enemy soldiers advanced along the main ridge, unaware of their detour. Each step Sam took was a dance with danger. One misstep could expose them both to gunfire. Her breath came in shallow, controlled bursts, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Ahead, she spotted the enemy sniper who had taken position, likely waiting to cut off any escape. Sam crouched behind a boulder, heart steadying. She aimed carefully, factoring wind, distance, and the slight slope of the ridge. One well-placed shot could eliminate him, clearing the path to freedom. The sniper fired instinctively, but Sam's training had prepared her for this. A precise shot rang out, and the enemy collapsed silently, neutralized without raising the alarm. The hostage's eyes widened in disbelief. I didn't think you could do that." Sam shook her head, keeping focus. "Keep moving, almost there." She led him along a narrow escape corridor, using every shadow and every crevice to shield them from detection. Each time an enemy approached, she fired calculated shots, forcing them to take cover, buying precious seconds. Her strength was fatting, her leg throbbed with pain, but she refused to show it. Every action had a purpose, every movement saved lives. Hours, or what felt like hours, of careful maneuvering passed. The enemy, frustrated and disoriented, began to falter. Sam sensed the balance of power shifting. She had turned the chaos to her advantage. By controlling the terrain, forcing the enemy into predictable patterns, and using stealth combined with precise sniping, she had become the unseen hand dictating the battle. The tide was turning, and for the first time she glimpsed a path to extraction. Finally, they reached a small ridge overlooking a hidden dry riverbed that led toward the planned extraction point. Sam's eyes scanned the distance. Enemy forces were regrouping below, but her diversionary tactics and careful timing had left a narrow corridor clear. Relief surged briefly, tempered by the knowledge that the extraction was not yet complete. She would have to cover the hostage for the final stretch, and one wrong move could still be fatal. She paused, crouched low, and whispered to him, "Keep calm, this is it, one last push." The hostage nodded, eyes wide, trembling but resolute. Sam's mind was a razor, every detail aligned, every risk calculated. The desert, once a maze of peril, had become a weapon in her hands. She would lead him to safety. The enemy was close, but she now controlled the battlefield. One final stretch remained, one final test of courage, skill, and determination. And Sam Carter, the 18-year-old sniper no one had believed in, was ready to turn the tide completely. The dry desert wind carried the distant echoes of shouting and gunfire. Sam crouched behind a jagged boulder, the hostage pressed low beside her. The extraction point was close, tantalizingly near, but the enemy had regrouped, and this was the final hurdle. Every muscle in her body burned from exertion. Her leg throbbed where the ricochet had grazed her, but there was no time to pause. One mistake now, and all the lives she fought to protect would be lost. The enemy had established a blocking position on the ridge ahead, their weapons trained like a steel net, anticipating their movement. Sam scanned carefully, calculating angles, distances, and trajectories. Every detail mattered. The terrain that had once been her advantage was now treacherous. A single misstep could expose them both. She whispered almost inaudibly, "We move together. No hesitation." The hostage nodded, gripping his arms tightly, eyes wide with terror and trust. Sam had one strategy left, a combination of stealth, deception, and precise marksmanship. She set a small, improvised trap from the few remaining explosives she had, carefully positioned to incapacitate the closest soldiers without revealing their exact location. Her hands moved with lethal precision, heart hammering in tandem with the distant rotor blades of enemy reconnaissance drones. Every second was a race. Every sound, every shadow could signal death. As the trap detonated with a controlled blast, rocks and sand exploded into the air, drawing the enemy's attention for just long enough. Soldiers dove for cover, shouting in confusion. Sam seized the moment, guiding the hostage down a narrow depression leading toward the extraction point. She fired carefully from behind cover, each shot precise, each movement calculated. Exhaustion screamed at her body, but her mind remained razor-sharp. She was the unseen hand controlling the chaos, turning danger into opportunity. The enemy began to adjust, their commander realizing they were being flanked. Sam pressed on, eyes locked on the final ridge separating them from safety. One last sniper appeared on a high ledge, weapon raised and aimed. Sam's pulse steadied. She aligned her scope, factoring in distance, wind, and heartbeat. One perfect shot could eliminate the threat. One mistake could end everything. She exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger, and the sniper collapsed silently into the sand. The hostage clutched her arm, trembling. I didn't think anyone could," Sam interrupted softly but firmly. "Keep moving, almost there." The final stretch was narrow, a canyon barely wide enough for two people, with enemy reinforcements closing from both sides. Sam guided him with whispered instructions, timing every step to avoid detection. Bullets ricocheted off rocks nearby, sending clouds of dust into the air, but she pressed forward, relentless. Every second was a life-and-death gamble. Finally, the extraction point came into view, a hidden ridge clearing with a military helicopter hovering just beyond, blades cutting the dusty air. Sam's eyes widened briefly with relief, but the mission was not over. Enemy reinforcements were approaching rapidly, and she had to buy the final seconds. With a final burst of precision shooting and careful maneuvering, she cleared the immediate threat, dragging the hostage into cover. The helicopter's rope ladder descended, and she guided him up first, ensuring his safety before climbing herself. Her leg screamed in protest as she ascended, muscles trembling, but she refused to falter. The moment she reached the helicopter, she allowed herself a fraction of relief. The desert, chaotic, lethal, and unforgiving, was behind them. The enemy had been neutralized. The hostage was alive. Sam slumped into the helicopter seat, heart racing, sweat and sand coating her uniform. She had done it. Alone, she had turned an impossible mission into a success. And yet, as the blades lifted them into the air, Sam knew the battle was not just about skill or courage. It was about determination, instinct, and refusing to be underestimated. This was the moment that would define her. The final confrontation was over, but its echo would resonate far beyond the desert. One shot, one chance, and she had succeeded. The helicopter lifted into the sky, blades cutting through the desert wind, carrying Sam and the hostage away from the chaos below. Relief surged through her muscles, exhausted yet unyielding as she slumped against the seat, eyes scanning the horizon one last time. The desert, lethal and unyielding, stretched endlessly behind her, now silent except for the distant echo of gunfire. She had turned a near-impossible mission into a success, all alone. The hostage, trembling but alive, clutched her arm in gratitude. When they landed at the forward operating base, the scene was chaotic. Commanders and medics rushed toward them, surprised and confused. The main team, trapped earlier and expecting the worst, gaped at the sight of the youngest sniper in the battalion, alive and victorious with the engineer safe. Initial skepticism gave way to astonishment as Sam quietly explained the path they had taken, the diversions she had set, and the enemies she had neutralized. Her calm voice carried authority that belied her age. The engineer, still pale and shaking, whispered his gratitude. "I thought I was done for. I didn't think anyone could do it alone." Sam offered a small nod, refusing to dwell on praise. Her focus had never been on recognition. It had been on survival, strategy, and duty. Yet she allowed herself a fleeting moment of pride. Against all odds, against the skepticism of everyone who doubted her, she had succeeded. Commanders initially hesitated, struggling to reconcile their disbelief with the reality before them. An 18-year-old girl sniper, dismissed as inexperienced, had completed a mission that would have challenged even the most seasoned soldiers. Reports were filed, commendations discussed, and Sam's name began to ripple through the ranks. The mission's success could not be ignored, and her tactical brilliance, courage, and determination were recognized officially for the first time. Later, in a quiet tent away from the buzz of officers and medics, Sam cleaned her rifle, methodical as ever. Her leg throbbed, bruised from the earlier injury, but the pain was secondary. Her thoughts wandered to her younger brother, who had always believed in her when no one else did. She could already imagine his face lighting up when he heard the news, proof that courage and skill are not measured by age. In that moment, she allowed herself a small smile, feeling the weight of the impossible mission lift just slightly from her shoulders. The story spread quickly, not through boasting or rumor, but through respect earned on the battlefield. Other soldiers began to see her not as the youngest or the quietest, but as a sniper of extraordinary precision and intuition. She became a symbol of determination and the power of preparation, inspiring those who doubted themselves to push beyond their limits. One shot, one chance, one girl. The legend grew quietly but powerfully. Sam remained humble. She didn't seek accolades or attention, only the satisfaction of knowing she had done her duty. The desert had tested her, her skill, and her resolve. It had demanded sacrifices, courage, and unwavering focus, and she had met every challenge, proving that instinct, intelligence, and determination could outweigh age or expectation. As she watched the sunset over the base, the sky streaked with shades of gold and crimson, Sam felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The mission was over, but its impact would endure, on the lives she saved, on the battalion that had underestimated her, and on herself. One shot, one chance, one girl who no one believed in had changed everything. And for the first time, Sam Carter allowed herself to believe in what she had achieved. The desert was behind her, but its lessons, its echoes, and its legacy would follow forever.